Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Show. So happy to have you with me this evening, a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And yes, I am here tonight with a very specific thing this evening. I know usually you think, well, Larry, you were, away off on the weekend doing stuff. So you're going to come back and you're going to yap about like the news or something like that. Well, that is normally the case, but not today. Today, I've got something a little bit special. Today, I don't have one guest. No, that's for chumps. I have two guests today to discuss something which is, I think it's evergreen, actually. Like, people have been complaining about this in some way, shape, or form forever, and that is immigration. They might say, wait a minute, Larry, we've heard the immigration debate before. But have you heard it from the correct lens, which is the libertarian lens? That's the correct way to think about immigration, is through the only true way, which is libertarianism. So have you heard it through that? Well, odds are, if you're libertarian, probably far too much. But that's okay. If you're not libertarian, and most of you are not, I know, this may be interesting for you. What should we be doing with immigration? How should we be handling it? Is open borders the answer, which is a very common libertarian view? Is closed borders the answer, which is a very common view for many people today, more than for a long time? Or is there some other answer involved? And let me bring on, if I could, the man himself, Ben Weir. How are you? AKA, is it the emo?
Emo and Cap. Yeah.
Emo and Cap. There we go. Yes. And also his arch nemesis. I'm kidding. DL Cummings, the Liberty Dad. How are you guys doing?
Very well. Yourself?
Doing outstanding. And you guys, you can follow this, guys, if you want to. You can follow Ben on Twitter /X on the Emo and Cap. And you can follow DL on Twitter at Liberty Dad Pod if you want to check those guys out to see what they're doing. Well, let me start with this, if I could, guys. In reality, I think many libertarians know the very famous Friedman quip, which is, you can't have, I'm going to paraphrase it, you can't have free immigration and a welfare state. Like, those two things are incompatible. However, a lot of people disagree with them, libertarians included, and they think differently regarding those two. And then the other thing is the most purist of libertarian viewpoints, which is any limit on immigration is by default a limit on freedom of movement, and then by default it is anti-libertarian. Ben, touch either of those two if you would.
Well, I definitely agree with Milton Friedman on this. I am staunch, not like for open borders. I do think that I was actually like kind of struggling to figure out like which way I want to go with this, because like, do I want to like give you the real, true, and correct libertarian anarchist approach to this, or do I want to like just be like nuanced and say like this is how we should do it today? But like my,
give me the one that's not boring.
Well, the one that's right is the one where we have it's not open borders. It's not Ellis Island either, because Ellis Island, a lot of people call Ellis Island open borders, which is kind of, in my opinion, that's a silly thing to say. But it's not open borders. But
you've talked for about 2 minutes and told me nothing, Ben. Give me your view.
In a perfect utopian stateless society, borders will no longer define nations. However, communities will have borders, and private property is king in all situations here. So
hold on, then let's walk down that road then. If we go down to this perfect world and we have these communities, the communities could be small or they could be large. So a community could be as small as me and my family, or a community could be as large as several tens of thousands of people, couldn't it?
Co-ops, absolutely. It basically it's reduced to property lines, essentially. Correct.
Then if I have a community and we voluntarily got together, tens of thousands of us, which could happen easily, I'm basically creating some form of state, whether that is a physical state or whatever, I'm creating something. is then open borders good?
Well, like open borders on voluntary property is different because you're still talking about, something that's reduced to property
But
lines.
now
and
I
so
got a
on.
community though, right? So even though I have my own property, right? I own my property in my community, but my community says nobody can come in. I say I get to come in. If I want the yellow to come in, I like the yellow. I'm to come in. My community says no, he isn't the proper thing that we say. We need him to have the proper thing, whatever that thing is. He doesn't have it. He may not come.
Oh, I mean, open, like if we're talking like something as big as like an open city or something like that, where freedom of movement would be like respected and everything. If you voluntarily opt into living in that society, then like you kind of like, play by the rules at that point. But, free to travel on, non-private land is a little bit different than, freedom to travel on private land where.
So does size matter? Is that what you're going to tell me? Size matters, Ben?
Size does matter. Size does matter.
So if at some time I get big enough to where I can impose my will upon others and decide whether or not someone can cross a border or not.
Which is how historically the world has operated. Like,
then closed borders is fine then.
Closed borders is basically the answer that I'm pitching here. Yeah.
Closed borders. Okay, good.
Yeah.
DL, tell me, why is Ben wrong?
So he didn't give you the nuanced answer, so I'll have to respond to the non-nuanced answer, even though I know he has one.
Okay.
So I think that the problem with this idea of a private society, it relies on a plethora of infrastructure, like social and I guess you could argue legal infrastructure that simply doesn't exist. So for instance, the simple version is to say, okay, we have a welfare state. We don't want the welfare state. We can't have open borders. By the way, I'm not fully open borders. We can get to that later. But you have this welfare state and say, oh, we can't be open borders because we have a welfare state. Well, okay. I think that's being very selective on the preconditions for what that particular position will support. Okay. Because if you have a fully privatized property argument, then that requires other elements to be in place. So for instance, we'd have to repeal all gun laws. They're not there.
But hold on. For us to have this world that both of you are talking about, that I own my private property, doesn't someone have to say I own my property? I mean, the reality of it is I only own my property because others agree that I own my property. If others don't agree that I own my property, then I don't. They will simply take it from me via force. So someone has to agree, whether that's a government, a community board, I don't know. Someone's got to say, yes, Larry Sharpe owns that property, so don't go take it from him because he owns it. Don't we have to have that too? Or does everyone have to guard their property with the guns?
So I'm not arguing for the ANCAP position. I'm just saying that for it to exist, you need a whole lot of infrastructure that doesn't exist. And I look at it and I say, I don't see that as a feasible argument at this particular point. I mean, we just had Jimmy Kimmel get kicked off the air and half the right were celebrating, even in spite of the idea that it might be a First Amendment violation, right? So we can't even respect one amendment, let alone all the other ones that at least would go toward that society, even if we didn't have them framed as an amendment.
All right. So I basically screwed up in saying what was the best answer. Let me go back to you, Ben, since obviously I made an error here. What is the answer for today's world? What is the answer for what we have right now? Right now, we have several issues. Issue number one is we have a lot of people who are in the country that are either undocumented or illegal, however you want to assign them, but they are not here legally right now. Tens of millions of them, who knows how many, maybe 20 million, maybe, I don't know, but for sure tens of millions are here now. We have a criminal element within them. Not obviously, I think everyone would agree, not the majority of them, but there is a criminal element in them. And if you have even 1% of them being bad guys at 20 million, that's a whole lot of bad guys, even at 1%, right? Assuming that that's true. And the thing, we have labor issues. a lot of those people are actually working. Like they are doing things. Of the 90% who are not in the black market, obviously being bad guys, there's still tons of them who are actively working and doing things. So what do we do now? This is where we are now. And right now the borders are closed. What do we do now?
So, I'm not sure if we would all like agree or acknowledge that both visions of like my ideal, like, a private border society and Ellis Allen nostalgia are utopian, but in my opinion that they are rather utopian. And, like that's not probably the best way to go about if we're talking about like our current issues in our current society with our current culture and economic welfare problems and immigration issues that are out of hand. But
so you
Ellis
just
Island,
hold on, you just called Ellis Island and open borders utopian,
and a perfectly private society with private
and
borders.
Utopian.
That's also utopian to say that this is going to work perfectly. No matter what, I think that like if you're talking like Ellis Island, you're still talking about
Ben. Stop jumping. I'm asking you to give me your answer.
Right. So what I'm saying is that I'm not advocating for a federal wall or for ICE raids or anything like that. Okay. I'm not advocating for that. I am advocating for, at this point, states to dictate their own immigration policies, decentralizing it on a bigger scale. And essentially,
so hold on, for clarity, you're saying Texas can have a separate rule than Arizona.
Correct. And they will handle their border issues on an individual level, not on a federal level in a way that extorts the entire country. New Hampshire will have its own issues with Canadian illegal immigrants trying to come through here.
We have that in New York. I'm with you.
It's a thing. There's drugs that come from the north. It happens all the time. But like, I don't think ICE, I actually like, I'm for abolishing ICE. I think that if we could privatize,
if we abolish ICE, does that mean New Hampshire should have its own ICE, or New York State and Texas should? So you're actually for abolishing federal ICE, but you're okay with a localized state level.
If the state does that, I'm talking like, because we can't talk about like decentralizing to the point of like Manchester is its own state at this point, but like decentralizing even to like the state level of just Manchester or to New Hampshire rather. I believe
so yet again, size does matter, Ben.
It does matter. And, New Hampshire has its own National Guard. It's being used for things it's not supposed to. But this seems like it'd be something that the National Guard would address on a state issue level. So I'm for.
So you're kind of getting it back to a state level.
Correct. Yeah.
Let me grab a super chat real fast. Duke of X, thank you for the $5. He says, why do people complicate things? Everyone wants to be politically correct as to not to offend anyone. Not me, but that's okay. Friedman is right. Freedom or socialism, not both. Now, in your world, Ben, you don't address Duke's question at all. You don't care what the government's doing at the federal level in your world. You don't care if they have a welfare state or not. You just think states decide how they see fit.
Correct. And like, honestly, that stems from like, me really only caring about like what's happening in New Hampshire, like what I can directly affect.
Yeah, but hold on. If they come across the border in Maine, or if they come across the border in Vermont, they could just walk right into your house, can't they? Can't they just come across your border? Are you gonna have ICE, New Hampshire ICE agents along that whole long border up there?
I've been known to advocate for a border wall around New Hampshire. Sure.
So you don't want a border wall on the southern states, but you want one around New Hampshire.
That's kind of a joke, but really like there are ways to like mitigate that though. Like it would come down to like more like private contractors, security. New Hampshire would have its own state ICE. Like we have a surplus in the budget every year. Like we handle our own security in a lot of ways already on a county
surplus in a budget. I'm from New York. I don't know what that means.
Of course not.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
But like, I'm not advocating for, because we don't have income tax here. They pay for things in other ways.
No
like
income tax. I don't understand what you're saying. Is that English?
Well, our toll system pays for a lot of things here. We don't have a sales tax either. Obviously, property taxes pay a lot of things. But, I do think that, like, if you're talking about people traveling through the state, maybe making them pay a much higher toll than people who are, for instance, from your own state, which I actually think is illegal on a federal level, but that's
so what I'm hearing right now from you, if I'm clear, Ben, is you're basically saying you're totally for closed borders, but basically around the state.
Yeah, I think every state should be able to handle its own issue. Like, I do not think that Texas should be able to extort New Hampshire's residents by, having our federal dollars that go out from taxes or whatever.
So let me give you pushback on this if I could.
Sure.
Is it you call yourself an ANCAP? I think you self-identify as a small L libertarian. Is that correct?
I'm both. I mean, I'm on the LNC, but I'm okay. Yeah, I'm a lowercase L libertarian before I am a uppercase L for sure.
I'll buy that. No worries. Can't you see the obvious anti-libertarian view of not allowing people the freedom of movement? Can't you see that clearly? Isn't that obvious?
Well, I mean, but like freedom of movement does not mean freedom to trespass.
Okay.
So there's I don't know. I think that that's important to take into consideration, because I don't think that a lot of people consider, because truthfully, in a perfect ANCAP anarchist society, we're talking if things
no, I don't want to go there. I want to go where we are right now. Right now, you have your private property in New Hampshire, wherever that is, but the rest of the state is not your property necessarily, right? It's either government property, or maybe you believe it's collectivized property or whatever. Mm-hmm. So why can't somebody walk along that road, which is not physically your road? Or are you saying that in this case, you do believe in collectivism?
Well, it's on a communal basis, it's probably the best thing that we would be able to offer right now, as things are in reality. I just don't like to jump into pipe dream crazy land where everything's perfect, but ideally I would like it to be, a perfect world of a combination of closed and open borders and everyone gets along. And that's just not how the real world is. And there's,
I think it did happen though in the EU, didn't it? Didn't they basically have open borders within the EU? Didn't that basically happen?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that open borders in the EU essentially led to a lot of those countries just completely collapsing, because people would come into their country and flood it with communist ideals and overflood the welfare system. And this is where the Milton Friedman quote comes in clutch, is when that welfare state is in place, we have a terrible welfare issue in this country. But when it
comes to the EU, all of them are welfare states.
Yes. So that's they're allowing anybody to come in there, and it is destroying their countries. They're completely falling apart. Culturally, economically, welfare wise, we have a plethora of issues in the United States.
So I don't want to push the culture issue yet. I want to get to DL. I've been beating up on Ben for a bit. I want to beat up on you for a while, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So now you're saying you don't like the closed border idea. What's your idea for now? Not perfect world.
Sure.
For now, Ben's saying give it to the states. If the states want to build walls, let them build walls. If the states want to have ICE agents grabbing kids out of the schools and hammering them and beating them up, he's totally fine. Put them in jail. I just put words totally in Ben's mouth. He's totally fine putting him away. He's good. What about you, DL?
So first and foremost, I don't actually disagree necessarily. Hey, bud, I'm talking. Okay, buddy, I have to talk. I have to wait till later, bud.
He finished his homework. Well done.
I know.
Nicely done.
Hey, you're getting an applause.
That's good. Yes, nicely done.
You're getting an applause for this man, but I need to talk. Okay, bud? All right.
Good for him. I'm glad he got us. My daughter's still doing hers. Your kid's better than mine.
Right. Okay. So so I don't necessarily disagree with the ANCAP position in terms of principle. Where I disagree with it, and I also disagree with Milton Friedman's quote, is in practicality. I don't think we're in. I don't think they're practical for the world that we live in. So let me explain that. I mentioned preconditions earlier. Ben's world that he just said he wanted has preconditions. That means you would have to have the federal government, abolish ICE, abolish whatever other agencies like the Department of Homeland Security, or at least reduce its its authority on immigration and other things that it touches.
Yep.
You would have to reduce a lot of the money that's going to the federal government that funds all of these activities, because at the end of the day, states cannot control their border as well if they're busy giving a lot of their money to the federal government. Okay. So you have all these preconditions that are necessary.
But so far, everything you said, I'm not mad at.
Correct. Who knows? We'll get there. So
I'm not mad so far.
Then you have the preconditions, I believe, with Milton Friedman's quote, which is, he's saying, I think that's basically selective, saying, okay, well, we can't allow, a more open border, however you want to look at it, until we get rid of this thing. Well, okay, the same applies to Ben's situation. So my view on this is that we go to an Ellis Island immigration style system. Why? Number one, we've already done it. We know exactly how it works. We have evidence. We don't have, well, we do have some for Ben's idea, because in the early days of our country, we had more of that than we certainly do now. But we're far away from that at this particular point. So my goal
hold on, but let me give you the pushback on that, right? If you're saying Ellis Island, you're basically still saying you're kind of open borders, in that as long as you're prepared to be vetted, you may come. As long as you're prepared to be vetted and checked and make sure you're okay, you can come. Yes. Now, Ellis Island worked well, you're right, but that was at a time when America desperately needed labor. We had just had the Civil War. We literally had 700,000 dead and wounded Americans. We were industrializing. We had tons of space. We had tons of jobs for them. I mean, we were ready to rock and roll. We couldn't wait to get bodies in. Isn't that not the same now? Isn't that going to wind up being the same as open borders, except, okay, we may not have as many bad guys. I think that's true, because the vetted people might not come, or they might go to other countries or something. They'd be afraid to be vetted. If we still had ICE, as you're saying, you're not getting rid of ICE, ICE could go after the bad guys. That would make sense, because only the good guys would be here illegally, right? Because they'd all be vetted. That makes sense. But how do we take that? So
first and foremost, I don't know that I buy this argument that, oh my gosh, if we open the borders, nobody's going to have jobs. It's such a different place than we were a long time ago. Because if you go back through the historical record, immigration has always been a hot topic. And if you go back to like the Industrial Revolution, Ellis Island, those days, you can find a lot of anti-immigration sentiment. It didn't happen to be with the Latin American countries, or necessarily Middle Eastern countries. It was mostly with European countries. So like Catholics, the Irish, the Jews, so on and so forth. And if you look, you'll find that virtually all of the arguments are exactly the same. There weren't unique arguments then compared to now. They're literally the same. I mean, you might find a few unique.
I'm not fighting the argument, DL. I'm fighting the actual way the country is versus the way it was.
Right.
Not the arguments are the same, but I think the country was different.
Right. Let's talk about that. You have, depending on your numbers, somewhere between 50 and 40 million. I don't know, 50 million. The numbers keep going up every time somebody talks. But you have all these millions of people that are already here.
Yep.
They're already working.
Yep.
Most of them. They're not all sitting here freeloading. So the idea that all of a sudden it's going to change drastically, it already has. We're already there. The only difference is Americans like, say, myself and Ben, we're not on an even competitive level with immigrants, because they're coming in and they're doing certain jobs that can be done maybe under the radar for pennies, comparatively speaking, right? So that's a disadvantage to them, because they're not getting paid, reasonable pay, if you will, comparable to the rest of Americans. Not only that, because that pay is so low, then people like me, people like Ben, you, and many other people, we're going to look at it and say, well, I don't want to work for that wage. So if we bring them to a place of more legal status, then what you end up doing is you force all these employers to raise their wages. Then people will have to figure it out. Now, might we have a problem then? Perhaps. But I think that if we really believe that the market can solve a lot of things, I think we need to allow the market to play out. And the best way to allow the market to play out is to get government intrusion out of it as much as possible. which includes immigration, which is contributing to this underground market of labor. So I
isn't
think
Ellis Island another form of government bureaucracy?
Sure is.
So how would you avoid that?
I wouldn't. Because here's the thing.
So hold on. So what I got here is two libertarians who are saying, one saying build that wall, keep them out. The other one saying add another government. Another one saying add government bureaucracy. Let's add a department of Ellis Island. Is that what I'm hearing here?
No, we already have it. I didn't say add anything new. We already have it. You just take the resources. Ben wants to abolish ICE.
Part of what I want has
to say now you're Ellis Island. You're checking people in at a Statue of Liberty cash register.
Yeah, but aren't we literally then going exactly against what everyone talks about, which is when you do the Ellis Island thing, the problem is now you got people who did it legally, people who are still waiting, people who have family, people who have husbands, wives, all that stuff, families overseas who want to come over. Now they're all screwed because now all the people who are working at whatever immigration we have now have to go work your Ellis Islands, DL. And when they go work these Ellis Islands, now these guys are never going to come over. It's going to be totally unfair to the people to do the right thing. And the problem that people say, DL, is with this, you are literally just saying to hell with the law. The law doesn't matter. Who cares? And the people that did it right, they're now being punished. Am I wrong on this?
Yes.
Tell me why.
So, okay. I think most libertarians would agree that we have plenty of laws that are immoral and bad laws.
True.
One of the two, possibly both. Okay. In this particular case, let's just go with their bad laws. They don't produce good results. Right now, immigration hasn't produced the laws that we have, the way that we're enforcing them. They haven't produced good results. We have a backlog of all these cases for asylum. Yeah, right. And the laws have contributed to that backlog. They're the reason why people come in, they claim asylum, and then they're told, okay, come back in, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, however long. And then maybe they come back, maybe they don't, maybe they don't come back, and an administration kicks them out because that was an easy find, whatever. Right. So I think we have a lot of bad laws that are actually contributing to some of the problems that we're having. How can the market correct if you've got laws that are in place that are creating these underground markets? That there's no reason whatsoever to say, oh, well, things would be better if we just locked them all out. Okay.
But hold on. So now if I get rid of those laws, if I get rid of the laws, then why do I require Ellis Island? Are you just saying open borders?
No, I'm not. Because when I say Ellis Island, the reason I don't consider it to be fully open borders would be just be like, hey, anybody comes in and that's it. No check, no nothing. For me, I look at it and I say, I try to be practical and I try to minimize the potential harm to the fewest number of people. And I want to try to build a society that is a desirable place with productive people. So I look at it.
But you said we got to get rid of these laws. And I'm saying, what laws are you saying, right? I feel like the Ellis Island is just enforcing the current laws.
Perhaps, but I think we would roll back some of these laws. We would just say, look, you can come in if we have no document, if we can't find any documentation that you're a violent criminal or you've committed a major property crime here or in your home country, right? Well, then I extend it to serious communicable diseases with some caveats on that as well. So ultimately, it's very close to an open border, but it still does discriminate based on, what we can find. And look, if anybody's been paying attention, there's databases all over the place about practically everybody. So not that I'm advocating for them, but I'm just saying at this particular point, you can't really argue and say, well, how would we not know? We have a lot of this evidence already available. So I look at it and I say, hey, bring people in, bring all the illegal immigrants out into the light. I know that's going to upset some people because they're going to say, well, I did it the right way.
Yes,
you did it the right way. However, we need to communicate the law was not good in the first place. And that's why we have to remove it, because it's creating additional problems. And look, Reagan, he gave amnesty.
He gave amnesty.
3 million people, something like that.
Yep.
We're now talking about 50 million people. Whatever laws that we have in place did not produce the results that we wanted. They are not good laws. Period. Now,
let me bring Ben in. Ben is chomping at the bit. Go ahead, Ben.
I am. Well, I agree. Like obviously, like laws don't dictate morality. That's just like something all like of us libertarians will say. But I I think that the answer to bad laws is nullification and decentralization. And I think that you did mention that there's not I think that what I want in an ideal society is actually a lot of that already exists in the real world. Like we're talking gated communities, toll roads, private security, visa sponsorships, private arbitration. What you want with Ellis Island, I want it like a million Ellis Islands. I want my county to eventually be able to dictate who is allowed inside of the county and then decentralize from there. But we're getting this is getting into woo-woo land, that's not going to happen in real life. But I think that what I want actually helps. We were talking about the labor market. I think that this helps create a more free market because employers will be able to negotiate with workers, even out of state, out of county, out of country workers, with the infrastructure that they're using, that they're familiar with. So they can invite people over to work for them. And there's no state permission. Go ahead.
Hold on. Duke of X, thank you for $5. He says, socialism attracts the world's beggars. We need to attract the hard workers of yesteryear who wanted the opportunity to innovate and create wealth. I don't know how accurate that is. I actually don't know. And what I mean by that is I don't know how we have data that know that the people today work harder or less hard than those of yesteryear. I'm not saying Duke is wrong. I'm saying how do we know that, right? How do we know that an immigrant that comes from Mexico today works any harder or less hard than an immigrant that came from Italy 100 years ago or whatever? How do we know that? I think there's an image of that for sure. I don't know if it's real. But what he brings up here is neither of you are talking about changing our welfare state, which is what Friedman was talking about, and what so many libertarians are concerned about is the welfare state piece of this. And I'll go to the second piece, which is you were talking about jobs. The reality of it is the main reason I believe that we have so many immigrants in the country is because big business wants them for labor. That's the reason. A lot of individual Americans do not want immigrants in. That's true. But big business, they are happy they're here, working in their slaughterhouses, working in their hotels, working in their restaurants, working at their tourist shops, right? Working in those areas that they want them to be working in. And it isn't the wage issue. We know this. We've done experiments. Americans don't want those jobs. They don't want them. When they raise the wages, Americans still say no. Americans right now, if you want to, you can go to certain parts of the country right now and go work in a slaughterhouse, and you can make up to $35 to $40 an hour in a rural area. That is a lot of money in rural areas. $35 an hour, that's like, barely surviving in New York City. But in rural areas, you could buy a house on that. You can have a household on $35 an hour in the rural areas where these slaughterhouses are. And still migrants go. And I feel like we're missing, I think like Duke has brought up something that I feel like we're missing. We're missing the socialism aspect, which is still more money. And we're missing the idea of people doing the jobs.
So I think the issue, and I was hoping to get to this particular point a moment ago, when it comes to the socialism idea, number one, when people have jobs, more often than not, they go and they try to pursue them, right? When they have opportunities, they try to pursue them. We know this because the gig economy does not exactly produce, millionaires. People aren't getting super wealthy. Yet they're spending whatever discretionary time they have doing those particular jobs, right? So I think the more opportunities that are available to the maximum number of people, which would include immigrants. And so I think first and foremost, we need to deal with the fact that we have literally an underground market and allow the market to self-correct. Now, it's not going to be pleasant depending on how fast that turnaround happens. We flip the switch today. Tomorrow, there's going to be a little bit of havoc. If we manage to figure out some plan that stretches it out, the destruction, if you will, the challenges are going to be mitigated a little bit. So I think that's your number one answer. Number two answer, and this is why I disagree with Milton Friedman. We absolutely can have a welfare state and immigration at the same time. Okay. Not necessarily, I'm not saying it would be perfect. What I'm saying is we have rules already. I don't know if people know this, but you can get 3 different types of Social Security cards. You can get, let's see, one is a work only card. One is I'm drawing a blank on it, but there's 3 different kinds. One of them is a work only card that allows you to come in here and work. Right. So once we divert our attention away from fighting people coming here, seeing as how that didn't work, then we can deal with, okay, let's make sure that people that are getting on welfare actually need it. And further, because people are coming into the country, we are at full liberty to say, as long as you're an immigrant, you cannot have welfare. You can come here, no welfare for you. Yes, you might be contributing through your tax money. That's the price you pay for coming to this country. And we can implement that. And in some respect, we do. I actually don't agree necessarily that there's millions upon millions of people that are taking welfare, that are immigrants. I've looked into some of the data and it just doesn't match up in my opinion. So I'm a little dubious as to that, but I think we absolutely can. But let me just be clear. I don't think we should have a welfare system at all. I'm just disputing whether or not it's an absolute that a welfare system and immigration cannot coexist. I think we absolutely can. And I think Americans would be very amenable to that idea. If you told them, hey, look, the cost to get all of these people out is going to be ridiculous. So here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to offer amnesty under some criteria, like if they've never committed a violent crime, a property crime, and we're going to bring them out into the light. We're going to make sure they're documented, and we're going to tell them, you've got 10 years, 15 years, whatever, that you have to be a legal resident. We can't find any crime that you ever committed, a violent crime. We can't find any major property
Hold
crime.
on. Let me give you some pushback. Sure. I think Americans have already said that you're wrong. Americans had the option of DACA, which did what you said. It was amnesty for a group of people, which were those who were brought here as children, right? Mm-hmm. That was the group, and they couldn't be felons. And it said no public assistance, and we still hated it, and the country still got rid of it.
Right, so and I think that's because it's
hold on one second. And I think Trump said, I'm gonna get rid of everybody. I'm gonna spend all the money. I'm knocking down doors and bringing people out. And I think we voted for as a nation. I mean. Sure. We voted for Trump and said, yeah, put him in, spend the money. We don't care. We want the immigrants out. I feel like America as a whole, not libertarians necessarily, but as a whole, I think Americans have said, we don't give a damn about DACA and we want them out and we don't care. Well, people are signing up for ICE left and right.
I don't know if they're signing up for ICE left and right. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and take your word on that. But here, look, I think the problem is that we're not actually having, and we haven't had an honest conversation about immigration for a long time because it's been heavily politicized. And so I think it takes conversations just like this to come out and say, look, here's the reality on the ground. We can't get to the decentralized idea that Ben has anytime soon. Any of my utopian ideas, we're not going to get to those either. So what is the next best thing? Where do we go?
I got it. Okay.
I start from a position, and my position is always to ask a few questions and say, what are we trying to accomplish? Well, I want to be practical. I want to minimize potential harm to the fewest people, and I want to advance our society so that we have a productive society. So the first thing that I ask, I say, if an immigrant comes over here and they work hard, they pay their taxes, they go to work, they don't commit crimes, they pay for their Netflix subscription. They go home, they watch their kids, they walk their dogs in the same neighborhood as you do, and maybe they have some food that you don't particularly think smell all that great. Would you be okay with that person as an American, as being here in America? I bet most Americans, because everyone I've ever talked to, most Americans would say, yeah, that's exactly what I want. So then the question is, okay, can we convince people that there is a path to get that? And then,
okay, so let me go back to this.
To remove the people who aren't productive.
So, Ben, it sounds like what DL's saying is that this seems to make sense. In other words, he's trying to be practical, get what we want. And it seems that what you're saying is much more of a, well, theoretical, give it to the states and see what happens. Meanwhile, the states might make a horrible decision. The state might start building walls. They might start screwing things up. The state might make an ICE that's worse than our ICE that we have now and start putting people in Nashua, Gitmo Bay, right? Guantanamo Bay or something, right? I mean,
I think that happen? What I'm basically like the ideal thing of what I'd like to see is like 1 million Ellis Islands, right? It's kind of like a similar situation. Like you need a sponsor, a job, a family connection to be let into the community. You can be turned away for criminal or health reasons or whatever. But like the work aspect is something I did want to touch on because I actually work construction where the industry is, heavily throughout almost my entire career has been, most of the labor has been done by minorities and they've been done by immigrants, people who, you were right, Larry, you said that Americans don't want to do the jobs. You're absolutely right. They don't want to do the jobs. And truthfully, like I've been directly responsible for hiring a lot of people. And I can tell you what my experience has been, like with a privileged college student versus like a hardworking Mexican family that's an immigrant. I will take the hardworking Mexican immigrant family 100 times over.
You are not alone.
Yuppie American white kid. So like they're harder workers, and my company would gladly sponsor them into our community and to a job so that they could get citizenship. I'll tell you that right now.
Let me touch that immediately. That's a very sensitive point. I think you're right. A lot of I do hiring, firing too. Not as much anymore, but I used to. And a lot of people, particularly small business owners, they're afraid of the white yuppie or whatever, that guy is going to know the law and sue them and put them under. They're scared of that. And not show up and not care and be a problem and be an HR issue and all those things. I think you're right. They're scared. You're right. They're scared of them all. Now, legally, they can't discriminate against that, but they often do. It's a fact. And again, to DL's point, I'm not advocating for this, but I'm talking about what's real. That's what's real. Mm-hmm. So isn't there an argument that says, then this is America? I get you would rather hire Mexican or whatever, Guatemalan, but this is America. Yeah, that white kid or whatever, that kid from whatever, yuppie, he may be a pain in the ass, but he's an American and we should be hiring Americans. So what's wrong with you? Your company is in America, supported by American system, supported by American cops, supported by American, court system. God damn it, hire Americans. What's wrong with you?
I mean, like, okay, like the problem is that there's not a labor, like a labor market of people that really want to do these jobs a lot of times. And like, you don't have a lot of like college students that want to go and pick crops in the field for low labor, for low wages, in California. A lot of times they'll hire immigrants for like, maybe it's not the low wage thing. I know there's a lot of nuance there, but I do think that like the best way to handle this is find a company or a church that's willing to sponsor these people to come in. I think that's like really, it is kind of like the Ellis Island approach, but on like a super decentralized level. Like, I think that like, we talk about like refugees, for instance, too. Like that's another issue to this where like they seek a sponsor, right? They could seek a private sponsor to get in, just like you would have to apply, if you're an out of country, out of state person.
If I'm a refugee, if that's just how the hell am I going to apply? My house got blown up or whatever. I got, friggin' bad guys blowing up my house or in my, I'm on a boat trying to get to some place. I'm on a plane trying to get. How am I going to fill out the paperwork to do the thing? If you're about refugees, that is.
Well, I mean, there's like a lot of like organizations that would fill that void in a private market, but like the sponsors would have to assume this responsibility for their behavior, but also the welfare that they would be receiving.
So in theory, I'm a bleeding heart and I care about refugees from country X. Country X is in trouble. I want to bring them over here. I take responsibility for them. I bring 10 over. I have enough money and or whatever.
Which I think is more compassionate, by the way, because it's voluntary and not done through taxation.
I do it. I'm that guy. I do it. 10 of them come over. One's a secret bad guy, murders somebody. I go to jail.
I mean, there's private arbitration. I don't think that you go to jail necessarily, because I think that there's my opinion is that prison labor is okay. And some people might disagree with that. But I think that there's ways that person can go back to contributing towards society.
You're not sounding ANCAP at all. You talk about building walls and prison labor and all. You sure
hey,
you
man,
want to put ANCAP
I live in the real world. I am
going to take that ANCAP thing off.
I'm an anarchist through and through, but I live in the real world, and I will never live in an anarchist
society. Talking about a million
society.
Ellis Islands. That's not the real world, brother. What's going to happen if we all of a sudden went to the states? If we did your rule and we said the states can have it, I guarantee you what New York State would do. I guarantee you what they would do. I'll put money on it. They would go, let's follow the federal model. So they would do. That's what New York State would do. The New York State would do nothing different. If your law came into effect today and you went, okay, everything is by the states. Good luck. New York State will go, great. We'll follow the federal law. No change. That's what would happen. There would not be millions of Ellis Islands. There would no change at all. For most states, that would happen. Now, New Hampshire might change because you guys are crazy up there. Good crazy though. You guys are good crazy. I love you crazy. But compared to Americans, New Hampshire's people are nuts. That's just true compared to Americans.
But how many times do we deport murderers back to Mexico and they just get go free? It happens all the time. So
you're not wrong.
If somebody brings you in as a sponsor, I think that if you commit a crime in America, you should, do the time in America, probably. And I think that prison labor is okay in that situation. I don't think, especially this is prison is privately funded anyway. We're not talking a federal entity most of the time, but this. Come on, prisons are not all federally funded. A lot of them are privately owned. You can buy stocks in prison.
Not in New York State.
You can't buy stocks in the prison market in New York State. I think that I don't know about that, but I won't speak for New York. But I know that this is a normal thing. Private prisons exist, and I do think that
they do exist. Not in my state.
Yeah, I just think that if someone comes to New Hampshire, they're sponsored. Yeah, the person who sponsored them should have some kind of maybe they lose their sponsorship ability. Maybe there's ways that the market could find a way that those people are held responsible too. But the person who did the crime, 100%, they're going to contribute back to that society and repay its debt to what it did to that community, for sure. I think that that's okay.
I feel bad being mean to you because you have a Mapstead Sharpe shirt on, so I feel bad.
I know, I do. This is
trying to suck up to the host. God,
it's working. I'm telling you, it's working. So I gotta yell at you now, DL.
I'm gonna vote for y'all in 28 too. So yeah, I'm just saying. So
that's what I'm saying. I love it. I love it. So I don't know. Let me grab a couple of. I have a lot of comments. I gotta grab some if I can. Phil says, my family wouldn't be here without Ellis Island. The industries my bloodline has helped also wouldn't. And I think that is a piece that we're talking about, right? Immigrant labor has been a key part of the American, manufacturing line for a very long time, as far back as slavery. Indentured servants first, then slavery, then immigrants from, to your point, DL, Southern Europe and also Eastern Europe. And then eventually now it came from Latin America, now Middle East. But I think we've often, that's been a common part of America, has been immigrant labor, right?
Yes.
So I think it's an important piece. All right, let me grab a couple of these here if I can. Shelly says, let me grab Shelly. She says, most Mexicans do not want illegal immigrants in their country, but they can't stop it. And the cartel's taking over, including not doing the will of the people. Maybe we should help them. So I guess what she's saying is she thinks our issue has to be help the other countries to be better so that they don't come here.
Well, one way we could do that, and I'm sure that Ben would absolutely agree with me, is to stay the hell out of their business. We intervene in ways that destroy some of these countries. If you look back at some of the policies that we implemented, if people want to know why Haiti can barely feed themselves, go look at some of our policies. I think it was back in the 80s or in the 90s. There were several policies that basically destroyed their rice crops, where they actually had enough that they could export crops. Right. And then their pigs, they had swine flu or something along that line. And we were like, hey, why don't you kill all your pigs? And they were like, it's not really a good idea. And we're like, we'll give you some more. So they did. We gave them some more. And those pigs didn't last because they failed to thrive in that environment. So then we keep intervening in other countries. That's just one example. And then we're like, well, why can't they get their act together? I don't know. Why can't we leave them the hell alone? So I think that's a
a
good
valid
start right
point
there.
too. Okay. Vivek says this should be good. I see both sides. Before Biden, I would have said more open, but now definitely more closed. And I want to bring that piece up because the right will say this is a Democrat issue. That's absolutely not true. This most recent problem is a Biden issue. If you go back, there was a time where Republicans were more open borders than Democrats were. And there's times where Democrats were more open borders than Republicans were. So it's gone back and forth. Clinton was deporting people. Obama was the deporter in chief, right? This is not a Democrat versus Republican issue. As to your point earlier, DL, you know, Reagan gave amnesty to all these people, right? So I think this was really a Biden issue, and Trump took advantage of it. Again, he's a savvy politician, took advantage of the Biden issue. Well done on him for that. But I think he took advantage of it. The border was not the worst thing Obama had was DACA, which wasn't a border issue. It was taking care of people who were here. That really wasn't an issue. Why in the world do we think this happened under Biden?
So, okay. So there's a couple of things that happened under that are claimed under Biden. Number one, that Biden intentionally let in, you know, a lot, you know, some millions of immigrants. Okay. Now, I'm not going to argue against that. I'm saying these are claims that were made. And then the other argument is like they were like he let them in. Then another argument is like he in some way incentivized them to come in, maybe paid their way, so on and so forth. Here's my problem with that. It's not that those claims, I'm willing to accept them. My problem is that when we got to the Trump administration, Trump was like, we're going to take care of all this. We've got Trinidad Agua. They're out in Colorado taking over whole apartment complexes. We're going to go get them. But then virtually every single one of the high profile cases that we saw in the media, in the news, that the Trump administration really went to war with the media over, like say Abrego Garcia and whatnot. These people had been there for like 10, 15, 20 years. So I'm like, those are not people that came in through the Biden administration if they've been here for 10, 15, 20 years, regardless of what crimes they may or may not have committed. So I think that leads me to believe one of two things. Either we have no idea where these millions of people are, or those numbers were inflated. One of the two, because I can't understand, okay, if we know about them and Trump promised to get rid of them, why is it we're not seeing person after person after person, and all the information says, yeah, they showed up here within the last 4 or 5 years? We're not seeing that. So I'm kind of dubious.
Okay, Ben, go ahead, touch that.
Well, I think that, like, you know, it is this, the immigration thing, you know, like DL was saying earlier, this is like now coming to like fruition because of everything's just been like expedited. Every pendulum swing of every election, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Nobody talks about it until you have Biden. You have like 100,000 Haitians at the Mexican border trying to cross through. Or what was it like? It was another country, I can't remember. But you know, like
there's about 192 other ones.
Right. Well, you know, in my perspective, I mean, the concept of borders, it's basically just obviously it's reduced to property lines. And what I think a border should be, you know, something that's derived from consent, not from Congress. So I think that like the best way.
Borders also cultural. In other words, aren't borders, whether we like it or not, right? We may not like this, but aren't borders also forged by war, forged by blood, forged by iron, right? Forged by bombs. Aren't they? Don't Americans, and I would say humans in general, don't we go, yeah, that's the border, because some people who had power said that's the border. We see that problem happening in Africa, the Middle East. There's no tomorrow, right? You look, if you, after our big wars, the wars in Europe changed the borders completely. Germany used to be really big, then it lost 2 wars, it became really small, right? Like Russia used to be the Soviet Union, and then all of a sudden changed because wars and civil wars, Yugoslavia.
Property, like it goes beyond like just consent too. Like whatever you can protect is in, you know what I mean, that you build, you put together. Like if you can protect it, like that's your property, right? But America too, like it's not other countries. Like we came in here and we invaded the Native Americans.
Sure.
And the Native Americans had actually like a pretty fluent system, like where they had borders. They didn't cross the Connecticut River into Vermont, what we know as Vermont today, because that was another Indian territory. They knew that they'd be messing, and they had good agreements with them, or trade agreements and all this stuff that incentivized them to keep a positive relation with those people. If they saw some other tribe crossing through in a way that was, perhaps threatening to their culture, it would have provoked war between these two people. And when the Americans got here, we created a bunch of borders and split us up into, 50 states over time. And that's all enforced by government violence, like every single bit of it. So like
Yeah, but again, let's say that all of a sudden overnight the federal government goes, you know what? I don't care about borders. You guys can be whatever state you want. They just did it tomorrow, right? I'm fooling, but most people will be like, no, we're good. We'll keep the states we got. Why? Now I'm telling you that the federal government goes, I'm not going to enforce the borders. You could be, New York can merge with Vermont if it wants to. We don't care. Wherever Jersey could merge with Pennsylvania if it wants to. We don't care. Do what you want. I don't think we would. I think our culture would still say, no. I'm in New York. You're in New Hampshire, right? You're in Florida. I think we would still do that anyway.
Everywhere.
I think that you're right. Like, I think that like for the most part, like open and closed, they're not even really policies. It's kind of like a natural outcome of voluntary agreements, basically. Right. Like, I agree that you're in New York and you stay there, but like, what is the line that breaks us through? Now, like New Hampshire has a very clear western border, which is the Connecticut River the whole way down.
Yep.
So that is our border. So I think that like there's a lot of states though that don't have those like, those natural lines that cut them off from the rest of things. So I do think it could probably get hairy in situations, but I do think that the more you decentralize these immigration policies, the more clearly those borders will be defined. And like I said, not through Congress.
I've seen the chat. I'll go on that, man. I've seen you and a bit talk about, well, these borders are just property rights. They're invisible lines. They don't matter. I hear it all the time. But what I'm saying is culturally, they do matter. Like, we believe in those imaginary lines. And if we believe in those imaginary lines, they're not really imaginary, because we believe that there's a difference.
Like the dollar. It's like,
yes. The dollar has no actual value, but I believe it does. Therefore it does, because and you believe it too. If I give you $1, you go, yes, this is $1. This piece of paper is $1 because we all agree it's $1. I think borders are that. Let me grab a quick super good. Lunatic, thank you for $10. There should be zero rhetoric when it comes to immigration. Allow those that wish to be free in, allow them to work, be human, not inhumane. Don't get taken advantage of, though. No Marxist. He had to say no Marxist. He had to add that part in case you were confused, thought he was Marxist. No Marxist. Lunatic, I like what you're saying, but the question I was asking or trying to get a hold was not where I want the world to be, which obviously I'd want it to be as free and decentralized as I could possibly make it. I think everyone on this panel would want that if we could have that tomorrow.
Right.
But we recognize that's not going to happen tomorrow. That's just not. Even the idea of getting rid of borders is just not where humanity is. Could we one day go there? Maybe. I think it's possible. Maybe. But we're not there. We're nowhere near there. So what can we do now? I like your idea of being human, not humane. I agree. But how do we translate that into a policy that not only could Americans accept, but also the rest of the world could accept? Did I say that?
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, please. Dio, go.
So I think, and it may sound strange, but I think the way that we start toward that path is to start with the conversation of what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What do we want this country to look like? This is why I asked the question, of, okay, if somebody's here, they're paying their bills, they're paying their taxes. Yes, taxation is that, but they're paying them anyway. They got their Netflix, they're taking their kids to school, all the things that pretty much most every American is doing. And I think if we look at it from that angle and say, all right, this is the world that this is the country that we're going to aim for, this. And then we start working back and saying, what policies from where we are will get us to that particular point? And I think this is important because while I have my vision of the world that I would like it to be, which is probably not that far from where Ben is, right? I understand that's utopian and that it's not a conversation that I'm going to have with my neighbors down the road. But I can have a conversation with my neighbors down the road and say, man, wouldn't it be great if just everybody would get up every day and, go to work and they wouldn't steal people's cars and they wouldn't stab people.
That'd be nice.
And if they did, we punish them, perhaps even harshly, right? Virtually everybody's going to agree with me. And so then if I start there, then that lets this person know that, like, I'm not a Marxist, right? I'm not some sort of crazy, because I've already got them to agree with me on what world we want. So now I can start talking about some of the ideas. Then I think as libertarians, it's in our best interest to craft these ideas that will get us to that world that are as close to where we are as at this present time. Because the further away, the more changes that you have to make, the less likely you're going to get people to be on board, right? And this is why I was talking about like preconditions and all these things, like, hey, 50 states centralized, et cetera.
These debates matter. I like them. They're important. We have these conversations and talk about it so that other people can see where our heads are, where our utopia is, and what we're prepared to do now to make things happen, and that we're not just trying to make things bad. And look, you might be saying to yourself, Larry, I like this type of back and forth, this type of debate. Is there someplace else I can get that? There is. It's Civil. You knew I was going to say Civil because they're a sponsor of the show. So, of course, yes, you can do it on Civil if you want to. And here's the best part about it. If you want to, you can head on over to Civil. That's CIVL.com. And there is literally an open borders debate right there from last year. It's Chris Freeman and Dave Smith. You can see but here's the most important part. Ben and DL are better looking than both of them. And I'm better looking than all of them. So you get better looking guys here. That's the advantage of this one. But you do get one here. If you want to see this one, you can. Head over to civil.com and you can join up and you'll see this right here. This is parts of what you'll see.
Protecting their property.
Talking about property rights right there.
More largely with the question of how
and of course,
on social media or something like that to be like, oh, what are you, a bigot or something like that? Or what do you not care about these people who came over?
It sounds just like Dave Smith doing Dave Smith, of course. That's how it works. You can go over and check them out if you want to. And here's the best part. If you go over to civil.com, CIVL.com right now, sign up and put in Larry, which is the coolest name on the internet, LARRY. Put that name in, you get 50% off. That means $25 for the entire year. The entire year, not per month. The whole year, $25. You might say taxation is theft. No, that's theft. You should go to jail for that deal. That's such a good deal. That is worse than taxation. If you take that deal, that's how bad you are. Take the deal. Take that deal. Get you $25 for the year. Enjoy Civil. Civil is actually putting together things like this all the time. Every show you see me talk about it, what do I talk about? I talk about something cool on Civil. Every time I talk about a topical issue, there's something on Civil about it. Heading over to Civil, civil.com. We are upgrading civilization without, and this most important piece, without the conflict machine. Guys, thank you for letting me do my commercial.
Absolutely.
All right. So by the way, also, if I can move on, guys, if you haven't clicked the like button, click the like button. It does matter. It's important. You want this to go out, people to see it. You got to click the button known as Lima, India, Kilo, Echo. Not just that. You must share and repost this. If you don't share and repost this, you think it's a good idea to put immigrants in Gitmo. Why would you do that? It's not a good idea. Don't put them in Gitmo. Why are you doing that? Repost this and share this, and you go, Gitmo's not a good idea. Don't do that. Instead, be kind and humane, like Lunatic said. Do that. And one more thing, guys. If you like what you're hearing, support the guys who showed up today to do this. Go ahead and follow Ben at the Emo ANCAP on X/Twitter. Go ahead and follow DL on, and it's the best part. I want to make sure it's not just Liberty Dad. It's Liberty Dad Pod, because he has a podcast. So forget that, you can go watch the podcast too. All the details are there. Liberty Dad Pod. All right. I think I've done enough of my back and forth. I'm going to grab some more comments. I have so many of them if I can. A couple more if I can. All right. So many freaking comments, which I'm happy about that completely. Let me grab some.
Bring the worst.
Bring the worst. All right. Let me see if I can. I will grab some of these. Michael asked the question, who decides the property lines? It's a good point, right? There's always going to be somebody who needs to decide the property lines, right?
Consent, not Congress. So it does come down to, like, obviously what you can protect, one, but two, like, I think that like it's important to realize like this is not a government issue. This is something that the free market should be able to decide for itself. So,
but if the free market decides it, isn't the free market in this case? Isn't the goal of government in our utopian world, or better world at least, shouldn't the goal of government be to protect your individual rights against the market bully? Right? If there is
government must have a job, it must be to protect, our natural rights of private property,
So shouldn't government decide property lines then?
I think they can enforce property rights. I think that like that's not violently, but like, private arbitration, through a court system of some sort that is also, something
but isn't that also violent though, right? Because if me and DL decide who owns the property,
only if you lose,
we go through arbitrary, and DL says, I'm not going to your arbitration. I got more guys and guns than you. I'm keeping the land. Sorry, Larry, you're out. You're gone. Shouldn't I be able to government go, wait a minute, DL has more guns and guys. That's true, but he's wrong. He has violated my rights. Government, go beat him up.
I mean, that's American politics, though. We all signed that social contract, didn't we? But no, But
I'm being realistic here. If
I understand,
if he's got more guns and guys, and he says my property is his, when it is mine, isn't government supposed to be the guy who shows up and goes, sorry, DL, you got guys and guns. I got more guys. I got more guns. Give Larry his property back.
I mean, yeah, I guess like if we're relying on the government for that, then that's going to be how it is. But I like, this is like so weird because like I said, like I want to give like my perfect anarchist pitch, my perfect anarchist libertarian pitch for borders. I haven't really even talked about it because I'm trying to like stay based in reality of what we're dealing with. Cause I think that like that conversation is wild out there, but
okay. He says I'm closed borders, legal only. That's always been my stance. But Shelley is with you. She is with you. Ellis Island's everywhere. She's with both of you. I guess it's more. She's got more with you, Ben. She's like Ellis Island's everywhere. I think she's with you.
And that was just like I don't know. I feel like I kind of pulled that out of my butt, but I think that like
it landed.
Ellis Island worked so differently at the founding of America than it does today. Like there was no welfare state back then. You didn't have, a high cultural assimilation. There was very limited citizen benefits, but like today we have access to public schooling, healthcare, entitlements. We have this huge bureaucracy, decade-long immigration process, right? Like it's absolutely crazy. So until that changes, I think that like property owners, I don't even know that like, I don't even think that like property owners can like fully exercise control over a lot of these things. But, I think that like the overall biggest problem is just the fact that we have this like massive federal spending on it too. Like the incentives in the welfare state.
Here, Craig says, today's world, keep borders closed, Ellis Island type immigration system, criminal checks, medical checks. This is basically what you're talking about, DL.
Yes.
I think someone's listening.
Oh, I hope so. And to answer the question about the property lines, they've already been decided. And we kind of touched upon this earlier when we said, like, think about it like this. I have my property that I'm on right now. And if the government says, all right, no, we're not going to, identify, or we're not going to determine the property lines, I'm going to be like, okay, well, I've already paid for this land. I've already got a loan with the bank. This area is my property. I'm not giving up 1 inch of it. Right. Well, I think we would start to see that with states. So for instance, if New Hampshire, because they're all the punchy ones, if Massachusetts were like, hey, you know what? Actually extending north a little bit is our property. Right. Like we'd like to negotiate and change. New Hampshire is going to be like, no, even though they're full of anarchists, they're going to be like, no, this is our property. And they're going to maintain the property as it existed, as government dictated. And we would do that for nations. Think about it like on the southern border. Do you think Mexico is going to be like, yeah, actually, this is yours? Or do you think the U.S. is going to be like, actually, this is Mexico's? No, we're all going to be like, this was already decided. This is ours. So I think they've already been decided. I don't think we could argue whether they should be rearranged in a future time, but I think that gets into your utopian argument. But they've already been decided.
Okay. Mike Voss says, I'm hardly afraid to offend. Simple. Laws exist for reasons, as do borders. Remove either of or both, and you no longer have a nation. I think that's a valid issue, right? When it comes to the borders and a nation, I guess. But let me give a pushback on this a bit. Two parts. One, to your point earlier, DL, some laws are bad, right? So just because they're a law doesn't mean it's good. A lot of our brain dead chimps that are in our assemblies make terrible laws. So some of the laws are bad, number one. And the second piece is you can have borders and still have people cross. An example, again, I'll bring up is two examples. One is the EU, which I think some of you said was bad, but then I'll go another one, the UK. The UK has 3 separate countries.
Right.
Well, Wales, I'm sorry, Great Britain, not UK. Great Britain has Britain has 3 separate countries. Wales, Scotland, and England. They have 3 separate countries, but their borders are totally open. Now, obviously, they are very united in language. I mean, it's different languages, but they all understand each other's language. They're very close to each other in culture. They're very close. I mean, obviously they're different, but they're very close. But they have open borders. So, isn't there an argument that Mike could be wrong here? Because the laws could be crappy, and you could still have borders, but still people cross them.
I'm going to deviate and go not wrong. I think this is where libertarians have made very serious errors. We've kind of allowed people to believe that it's one or the other. Oh, we must have borders or we don't have a country. So if you go back to what I was saying earlier, what I was trying to suggest was saying, okay, let's abolish ICE. Let's abolish a lot of these efforts to restrain immigration, but then let's divert resources to other purposes, right? So what I'm actually advocating is not necessarily just scrapping everything. I'm saying there are some elements that probably could be scrapped. We can scrap ICE. I don't think that under my model, we wouldn't need an ICE. What we would need, you could actually defer that to the states, because what you would end up doing is the majority of immigrants that you're dealing with are going to be peaceful immigrants that are here presumably to work, that haven't committed violent crimes. So then you could take whatever resources you have, and rather than trying to deal with all of them, you're only trying to deal with the ones who are the most violent, right? Violent criminals, or people that I say are committing serious property crimes, right? And then you can also throw in communicable diseases, which is really more of a not let you in, not necessarily kick you out for, right? So I think it's really a diversion in saying, look, we need to restructure things so that we get to the society that we want. And I think
that restructure piece.
You reduce government.
I got 2 pieces I want to bring up for this, and this is comments. This is Phil over on Rumble says, I had family around 1900 that went back and forth to Italy for generations. 1/3 of immigrants went home before welfare. If you put $50,000 towards lawyers and fees, it's hard to justify going home. And I think that is another piece too, right? If we had a simpler system so people could go back and forth, a lot of people don't want to live here with their families. They have to. They would rather come here, work seasonally on some farm or on some hotel during the rush season, and then go back to their home country, right? And hang out with their family and friends back wherever they're born. They'd rather go there. They want to work here for X period of time, whatever. Many of them seasonally, whatever the appropriate season is, and go back.
I've hired multiple people that have worked here all year long. And then during the winter, they would basically take a voluntary leave and go back to Mexico to live with their families or to whatever property they have there. I do think that the Ellis Island thing, just it's not even a real conversation. We literally have such a the Milton Friedman quote should always be driven home, because the welfare state is so bad here. We're literally, it'd basically be like unlocking the fridge to an all-you-can-eat buffet. There's so many government incentives for people to come here. There has to be a much stricter process for people to get in, and by decentralizing it as much as possible, I think that you'd get rid of some of that. But with the Libertarian Party had an old saying, what is it? There's no such thing as free lunch. Well, right now there's so much free lunch that Ellis Island, open borders, anything open borders. Ellis Island is not open borders, by the way. It does drive me crazy when people say Ellis Island is the open borders policy. That is not true. They turned away tons of people for criminal health reasons, whatever. But I think like me and DL like generally like agree on a lot of things. We might disagree on this a little bit, but like overall, like I think that like it's just not practical. I think that the Ellis Island approach is a utopian approach. I don't think that it's even able to be implemented in today's structure.
All right, so let me grab a couple more comments here. Parm says Parm agrees with you, Dio. He says, why have ICE? We deported people before its creation 20 years ago. If local cops pick up an illegal hand them over to the BP. I think that's, you can do that. The Border Patrol, you could do so. That could be done. I think both of you guys agree with that. Mike is mad at you, Ben. He says, so at Ben, under your idea, California allows MS-13, who brings in ex-slaves and fentanyl, that affects every other state. Isn't that a problem?
Well, I mean, like, I'm concerned with what's happening in New Hampshire. So, but
so basically, Mike, he doesn't care if it's not New Hampshire. Yeah, take the slaves and the fentanyl is all good, just not New Hampshire.
No, but you know, like obviously, that's not right. But laws, we already said, like laws don't dictate morality. Those things are going to happen even in like you know, a voluntary private border society. Or an open border, that is going to still be a thing in all of the situations that have been outlined. So like there's no way to prevent that from happening. Like bad people will exist and they are going to keep doing bad things. And those people will find a way to get into private communities, open communities, voluntary communities, whatever it might be. Obviously, I don't agree with that, but California, if they opened the floodgates and just said anybody can come in, you know, then you've got Oregon and Nevada having to pull double duty to prevent these criminals from coming in.
That's
and
Mike's
affecting
point.
the rest of the
He's
state,
like, why are we doing that? Don't do that. That's Mike's point, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't care, Mike. Okay, it's fine. Right,
it's not that I don't care. It's just like I lived in California. I know that like immigration is a terrible problem there. It's not going to get any better, and they're making it worse by the day. They incentivize illegal immigration like crazy, especially on the southern side.
So EDBIDD says, bring our troops home, close borders with troops, then add multiple government access points, collect DNA, fingerprints, photos, tattoos, only because most of the documents make it easier. I'm not sure collecting all those things is making it easier, but I get his point, I guess. I'm also not sure we want to be collecting DNA.
Palantir. That's just Palantir.
Oh, maybe he's a Palantir guy. That would make sense then. Are you a Palantir contractor?
Found the Fed.
You know, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna have if I have a new sponsor next week, you know what happened? It's Palantir. A new sponsor next week. Guys, collect DNA. It's the right answer. Yes. Exactly.
So let me point out, when we had this whole hullabaloo with MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, it did come out that you really cannot identify Tren de Aragua by tattoos. And I believe that MS-13 is starting to move away from that so that they can go under the radar. So like it might catch the old guard, if you will, the people that have been in for many years back when it was a thing. But I think they're starting to move away from that. So I don't know how accurate that's going to be. And then our own government, they couldn't figure out tattoos for the life of them. You know, and I've personally experienced this even in our own government, in the military, where I was literally accused of being a racist for drawing, you know, like a spider web. And the commanding officer harassed me over it and was like, dude, you know what spider webs mean? I'm like, no. He's like, means you're racist. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not even a tattoo, for starters, you know? So, and it wasn't even a spider web. It was actually a poorly drawn target.
I was told the same thing. I wanted to get one on my elbow, and they were like,
can't do that. You can't get an elbow, man. Right. You can't.
Yeah, so there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to tattoos, and I don't know that the government or anybody is really all that good at identifying what tattoos mean and don't mean.
Okay, Ben, you have a fan. Mastermind says, I'm all in favor of building a wall around Ohio. See, there we go.
Only if Vivek becomes king of Ohio.
Oh, okay, there we go. So Vivek becomes king, and then we all build a wall around.
I would be stoked about that, actually.
There we go.
If Vivek became king, I'll move to Ohio.
A lot of Dan seems upset. He goes, freedom of movement is libertarianism 101. He's kind of not wrong. That's why a lot of libertarians do want open borders. There are a lot of open borders libertarians. It's true. Super Weapon says, I'm for open borders if and only if there's reciprocal rights and privileges from foreigners. So if foreigners can purchase property, vote on business in the U.S., then the U.S. citizens have the same. So I could then go to Mexico. But here's the issue with that, super weapons. There are far more people who want to come here than us who want to go there. I mean, it's what, 10-1? It's massive. Now, don't get me wrong, more Americans these last couple of years have been renouncing their citizenships and leaving than ever before. That's true. But even with that massive increase, it's nowhere near the amount of immigrants who come here. I mean, it's got to be at least 20-1, if not more. So I get what you're saying, but I feel like that seems kind of odd. Am I wrong? Guys, am I off on this one?
No, but I would also add that I think this forces transactions with property to be at the behest of governments, because you like my wife's from Indonesia. And so in Indonesia, you cannot own property if you are not an Indonesian citizen. Okay. And so I would not be eligible to own any property over there. And that's a rule by the government. So if my wife is now a citizen, but if she had come over when she first came over here, she could own property. And like if I sold her a piece of property, it would be a transaction between me and her, which is where I think it should be. So I would object to that just on the grounds that it really elevates it to between governments.
Got it. Jason says, is this a debate or is Larry just asking questions of two guests? I'm asking questions of two guests. Yeah, it's kind of that. But it could be a debate. I don't mind. It could be either.
There's a little bit of debate going on here. Come on.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Mike says, EU sort of open borders idea was tried and has failed in every nation that did it. Each have no-go zones for the population. That's not true. The open borders part of the EU, it made Poland, oh my God, rock and roll. Because so many Poles left Poland and got good jobs in England, Germany, the place like that, and shipped that money and that wealth right back to Poland. That's not true. There were many nations where the open borders piece actually assisted those nations heavily within the EU. Poland's one of them. Hungary did well because of it too. Mostly Eastern Europeans. Most Eastern Europeans went west, got a bunch of cool jobs, got a bunch of cool stuff, and came back east. And prior to the war in Ukraine was also benefiting because a lot of people, Germany and Ukraine has had a very good relationship for many years. And so many Germans actually, Ukrainians going to Germany, coming back and forth, all those things. Like a lot of Ukrainians speak German.
That is a good point, though. Like, countries that need more economy to be driven can customize their policies around this stuff. And I mean, 100%. You do have countries like Italy who were even giving out like $500 houses or $5 houses or something not too long ago.
Yes.
They have their towns are like diminished. They have no economy in them whatsoever. So they're basically just like letting anyone buy them for like $5. Now you have to like put in money to fix up the properties. There's like other things going on, but like the purpose of them is to drive economy in their country. So I don't know. This is another thing.
It helped out the Swedes. The Danes have had a better economy per capita than the Swedes. Sweden's the largest country in Scandinavia. Isn't that large, but it's the largest one by population. The Danes are the smallest by population in that area. And the Danes actually had a stronger economy than the Swedes. So the Swedes were able to get a lot out of the open borders part there too. So I think there were some issues where open borders has helped. Not every nation is what I'm saying. My point is, did the open borders in the EU help out the UK? I would say it helped out London. A lot of the UK has been hammered recently, but London, it's the financial sector was heavily benefited by all that foreign labor that came in from Germany, from Poland, from Spain, Italy, Greece, a lot of it. So it's not a total loss. I'm not saying that it's a good idea, but I think to just say it failed every time it's not accurate. You can find examples of it actually working depending upon where they are. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to grab that piece if I could. I will grab a couple of these. Superwoman says, can confirm the open borders of the EU has wrecked a lot of the cultural sovereignty. That's true. That's true. And integrity in Europe and the implementing stricter policies now as a reversal. This is true. And this is the part that I think we didn't talk about. Is there an issue or a concern with cultural problems?
Yes.
When people migrate. This part is true, but there has been an issue with cultural issues. But when it comes to just dollars, I think there are parts of the EU that did very well, dollar-wise, right? but many of them did suffer. Now, the advantage of the Poles is the Poles, to Superb's point, the Poles were very savvy. The Poles said, yeah, we can send our guys out, but we're making it real hard for you to come here. So they took full advantage of that situation. And many people didn't want to go to Poland because of that. So I don't know. Go ahead, Ben. You have something to say about that. Tell me about the
well, I think that like the cultural issue is something that like should be emphasized. I don't think people love their cultures, and you know, I think that like communities should only be able to like, you know, absorb newcomers at a pace that they can actually integrate them into that culture. Because there's also like a period where like you have to like you know, get into and integrate into that new space that you're in. Whereas like an open border policy, you know, without consent, freedom of movement, all this stuff, you know, I think that like that causes a lot of tension. Whereas like a more private or state level control would allow like communities to choose kind of like at their own pace and set their own terms on those things. Like and I'm not like,
but now hold on. Now, isn't that again against libertarian values? Doesn't the libertarian values say I should be able to rent my property to whomever I want to rent, whether they match my cultural background or not, or the cultural background of the area around me? I should be able to hire whomever I want, whether they match the cultural background, right? You were just talking about how you'd rather hire Mexicans versus the white guy.
I agree. Like maybe that's not like perfect libertarian answer, but I'm also like I said, I'm trying to live in reality here. Like I'm an anarchist. So like even being part of the Libertarian Party is compromising on my own values in a lot of ways. So, you know, I do think it's just really important to preserve, you know, cultural stability. I think like, it's not even like cultures change over time, but like it's bad when they're not stable. And I think that one of the biggest problems in America right now is that our culture is not stable. It switches every 2 to 4 years based on politics, based on what they're brainwashing us with on X. I think that like all that stuff is very important and it all matters a lot. And I think that like immigrants that want to be successful should adapt to the culture. And I just think it's a process. Like it's not something you can just like be thrown into. So
DL, tell me about you're looking like he's full of it. Tell me, DL.
So here's my issue. Number one, I don't think the government has any responsibility in overseeing or managing culture.
I agree.
Number two, a lot of our problems, if you actually talk to people and you say, okay, what is it that you don't like? The things that they're going to point out have been, if you want to use the term, inflicted upon us by our own people, right? So we talk about like white privilege, DEI, affirmative action. These weren't imposed on us by foreigners. These were imposed on us by our own American citizens. So I think the larger problem that we have is internal, regardless of, you know, of immigrants. And there are many, like, what does it mean when you say American culture? Well, if we're being realistic, American culture is a variety of things. Here in Jacksonville, it's one thing. It's going to be a little different up there in New York.
The live free or die culture, like it's a completely different world up here, man. Yeah.
Right. So you're going to have all these different cultures, but then they even break down, and I don't mean broken down, but they separate. You can separate them. I'm trying to think of how to say it so it doesn't sound confusing, but you can distinguish them even at a smaller scale. So for instance, since I'm an Asian household here, a lot of Asian households have no shoes in the house policy, right? It's very common. It's actually very common with non-Asians. There's a large number of non-Asians that also, and then there's a lot of people that simply do not follow that rule. So that's a part of culture, but it varies from place to place, sometimes from home to home, so on and so forth.
But hold on, let me give you pushback on this piece here.
Sure.
Right? And the two reasons why I'm giving you pushback. Number one is don't immigrants, because they come into our communities, still affect how we make those voting, right? Because if I have a bunch of immigrants around me who think X, Y, and Z, and we start thinking that, them being around me does pressure me, being an American, that maybe I should vote a certain way or agree with a certain thing or do it. So don't immigrants still have that influence on me? Not just that, they do go into our school systems, right? Even if they're not voting, they do integrate with our children. They are working with us at our workspaces. So aren't they still influencing our culture regardless? And if the government is not going to, you also said the government shouldn't control that. If the government's not control it, what if they are overwhelmed? And I don't mean, and I want to be clear, I'm not being jingoistic into saying that my culture is better. I'm not saying, I mean, my culture obviously the best because it's me. But besides that, I'm not saying that my culture is better. What I'm saying is this is kind of the Ben's point. If I have too much of any influx, aren't I going to destabilize my culture on what we as a group think is right or wrong, or norms of the case may be? Isn't that going to happen? And I use my example of this happens often in businesses. When businesses either expand too quickly or when businesses merge with other companies too quickly, the company culture becomes destroyed. It's not the same anymore. People don't trust it anymore. People start leaving, asking for more money. Leaders begin to struggle. This happens even in companies. Isn't that a problem, Dio?
No, I say it's not. And unless the government gets involved and starts choosing winners and losers. So let's use an example that probably everybody is familiar with. You work at a job, you go into the office, and then you have a cafeteria. Most of them tell you no fish in the microwave, right? And nobody really complains
or
popcorn. About that. Or popcorn, right? So there are some rules. Now, those aren't necessarily cultural per se, right? So now take somebody from a foreign country who happens to have food that to Americans doesn't smell so good, okay? And we're just kind of like playing this out. I'm not trying to say that you guys have bad smelling food, right? But some people would perceive that. If they complain to management, management should be able to determine their policies and say whether or not they're going to go, you know what? Okay, now we're not having fish, we're not having popcorn, and we're not having your food, right? In the microwave, you can eat it. You have to
This is literally my point. We actually had now a government decided, and the decisions were made based upon the new culture coming in.
Right. And so this is the problem. The problem isn't that people can't work it out. It's that government comes in and picks who gets to win. And they say, well, you can't discriminate against this guy because he has a different sort of food. And I argue, and I say, one, we used to be able to, we should go. And then two, we should go back to that. If we want people to learn to assimilate, if we want us to learn how to figure out how to get along.
Oh, but hold on. No, I'm gonna stay in this. I want to stay in this fish thing. All right. Here's the fish thing, right? There's 10 of us in the office and we don't like the fish thing. One guy comes in, one guy gets fired. And so now another guy comes in, he likes fish. He doesn't know that we have this fish rule. He puts fish in the microwave. We all get pissed off. Yeah, why'd you put fish in the microwave? He goes, I didn't know. Where I come from, we put fish in the microwave. Whatever, right? Okay. So now the boss comes in and goes, what's going on? We're mad because DL put fish in the microwave. We don't like fish. So now what does the boss do? He can go, guys, work it out. Option one. He can go, guys, okay, no one can use the microwave. That's a common thing. No one used the microwave anymore. Now everyone just got punished because DL brought fish in. Or the opposite thing, he goes, DL, please don't bring the fish in. And you're like, but that's my lunch. I eat fish for lunch. So now what winds up happening? Now, DL, you feel alienated. You do. You feel alienated, right? Correct. Because now you can't have your fish anymore. Now that might be okay, but now that's a problem. But here we keep going. Now, because over time, we have a massive amount of immigration. 2 more people come in and they want to put fish because they like you and they want to put fish in the microwave. Well, 7 of us don't want fish in the microwave. Now we're starting to have a problem. Culture's starting to break down over this fish in the microwave thing. Now, what if now people like me get upset and go, look, now I don't want to work here anymore because every time I come in, the goddamn place smells like fish. Right. I don't like that smell, so I want to leave. So now all of a sudden, there's more. Now we got a bigger problem. Boss comes in and says, nobody can have anything anymore. Isn't
that how the drug war started with fentanyl and moving drugs and all this stuff?
But this is my point. I guess I'm going back to my point, which is when cultures collide or clash, someone has to decide what's right and wrong. In the case of a company, it's going to be the boss, right? Or management, whatever. In the case of a nation, it's going to be the government, right? Who else does it? Or right, that kind of thing, right? And if it comes too much, it does become a problem. DL, if you're the only guy who comes in and wants to fish, you could probably find another answer and we can still work out. If another guy comes in a year later, we can probably figure something out. And eventually we'll buy 2 microwaves or whatever, right? Or we'll have to eventually over time, we won't feel attacked. But if it comes in too fast, it does create problems.
Well, under a federal, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just say, like under a federal open microwave policy, nobody's liable for that damage though. So like if you have the privatized system, like this company's dictating the rules, they sponsor these employees to come in and work for them, right? Like the infrastructure owner is what takes responsibility, both like legally and financially, for screening like these people and who they allow to be employed there. So like breaking the microwave rule, you could be terminated, or in this case, maybe deported. But like I'm trying to like loop this back into like, but like
overfish.
I don't know, like this is I'm overfish, right? But I feel like it does play into like my hand a little bit here, because companies should be able to dictate what's going on. And what I'm advocating for is like a super decentralized version of, I mean, I guess what you want, but obviously no government, but
okay.
Yeah.
Bill says $2, he goes, I was promised punches, fireworks, and black eyes. Well, you're not going to get any of that, my friend. We can't black eye. We're in 3 different states. Really tough for me to hit one of these guys.
Right.
And if they throw a punch from there, I can block really easy. I'm going to see it coming literally miles away.
Right.
We'll be fine.
So let's talk about this whole fish.
None of us are cops, so I don't know what you want. Black eyes are not going to happen.
Thank you for the gift of membership, by the way, John. Some guys, grab a membership if you can. I appreciate it.
So I think the problem here is that I go back to who is capitulating in those situations. Mm-hmm. Somebody is capitulating for one person, which is fine in a company if that's the way the company wants to operate. So let's say all 3 of us own a company and we all 3 have the same problem, right? I might say, well, I like fish. And so therefore I'm going to tell all the employees, hey, either, eat at different times, or perhaps maybe we'll be able to separate some rooms and say, here's an area over here where all the smelly food, if you will, can go. Whatever. There's any number of options that I can do where I can try to accommodate that particular worker. Ben might say, yeah, no, I don't like fish anyway, so no fish in here. And then Larry might come up with yet another solution. Then what ends up happening is, yes, somebody might feel left out in one way or another, and they can either say, I want to continue working here because it's not a deal breaker for me, or they can say, this is a deal breaker. I'm going to find another job. In the free market, under capitalism, people forget this all the time, not necessarily libertarians, but I don't think we talk about it enough. It operates on profits and losses. That means there are going to be good things that happen and there are going to be bad things that happen. And those 2 things help balance out the ultimate answer at the end of the day.
Okay.
But if we keep allowing government to intervene and say, no, you can't, discriminate against this guy because his culture says he has to eat this food at this particular time and you have to let him, well, then the government has now picked a winner. They have decided the culture rather than allowing Americans and potentially would-be Americans to figure it out like we did once upon a time. That's how we have things like Chinatown, because everybody was like, all right, our culture is over here now. And this is all, Chinese and Japanese and whatever other Asians happen to be in that particular area, right? And you go there and it's literally lives up to its name. So I think we have the answer. Well, the answer is confronting our own fellow Americans, not our immigrants. We have to tell Karen, back up.
Okay. Oh, Ben, you didn't like it. You guys, go ahead, Ben.
Just under like a federalized like Ellis Island system, they're going to be able to dictate culture and all of this stuff. They can tell a bunch of people, they can make rules for who they want. And whether we like it or not, people have natural inclinations to bias and discrimination. Like I just said, like I want to hire a Mexican before I want to hire a white dude, but I live in New Hampshire. So like no Mexicans are applying here. I need more Mexican food around me. You know what I mean? But like there's no Mexicans here. So like I'm just saying,
trying to get you more Mexicans. You keep saying no, you want to put a wall up.
No. Just
nicely done.
Just to keep Boston people out. Like there's communists in Vermont people. And Massachusetts. Maine. Some of them are okay. But anyways,
let me grab a couple more if I got a bunch of these here.
Sorry.
Mike says He had to step away, Larry. Illegals can and should be in Gitmo, Alligator Alcatraz, El Salvador, Sudan, and Antarctica. They're not our responsibility, and they are criminals. Okay, I know you think that, but this is libertarians. We do not think that. That's not what we think. So no, we do not agree with that at all. I do not want to put illegals in arresting him and throw him. No, we either should not let them in, or we should give them a way to become somehow legal. So and if they choose to do none of those two, then they can go back to their country if they need be. But I do not want to put them in jails and such unless they commit crimes. Even if they commit crimes, we do have an amendment that says no cruel, unusual punishment. And I would follow that amendment.
Let me take that a step further here. So please. if I saw correctly, is it No Sound Bites? Is that his name?
Yes.
Black man. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So what he's basically doing is making the argument for how slaves were treated, which made no distinction based on any kind of crime or things that they did wrong. It was like, hey, you looked at me cross-eyed, maybe I'll beat you. That's not any different than saying, oh, you crossed an imaginary line, because it's not, I mean, it is a line, but it's not something that you can physically see. You crossed this line, that's the only crime you've committed. We'll throw you to Alligator Alcatraz. We'll throw you in a prison designed for terrorists. That's not any different. I think you should reconsider.
Well, there we go. You should reconsider, Mike. DL thinks you should reconsider. There we go. So, and I get that there are people who agree with Mike. Mike is not alone in that thought process.
Sure.
But I think a lot
we need to recognize that we can talk about proportionality, and it doesn't even have to be within a libertarian context. We can just say, hey, look, if you're a violent criminal, if you're Tren de Aragua and you're running around taking over apartment complexes, fine. Send them to CCOT over there in El Salvador. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Somebody comes over here and the only crime is that they overstayed their visa. Really? We're going to send them to CCOT? That's the kind of people we want to be. That's what
we're alligator.
I don't want to be that guy.
Like that's insane.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm there. No, like, I'm not there. I'm with you guys. Rick says, if people find it easy to come to the front door, we can screen there and really crack down on the border. The walls are where good people will feel. Oh, the walls where good people will feel need to finance coyotes and small. Oh, they won't need to feel that. Yes, that's correct. Yes, absolutely. I think he's correct. I think if we make it easier to come here, more people will come here to be easier to actually vet. I completely agree.
Yeah, so because we got millions of people to deal with.
And the only reason this is even
as many as we can, and then spend our resources with the ones that really need our attention.
The only reason this debate even happens all the time is because the way to get here sucks. Like,
correct.
The way the government is doing things is terrible. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. We'd be like normal libertarians debating abortion or whatever else is going on.
If we had Ellis Island, it would be so much easier. You're right.
Yes.
Thank you for agreeing.
Ray says, Vivek is running for king of Ohio. I'm from his hometown. It's not funny. So I think she's unhappy about that. You've made her unhappy. You've made her unhappy, Ben. Okay. She is not happy that he's running for king.
I think that he should be king of the Libertarian Party too. So anyway.
Boo! 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 No king of the Libertarian
this
Party.
Man.
Boo! Boo!
There goes wearing that shirt.
There we go. Yes. Boo. Unless you're allowing Map said Sharpe to be king, then fine. Okay. Okay. So there we go. Phil says, I think it's hilarious that the law generally is that you're supposed to be a refugee in whatever country you arrive in first. There are refugees going to England on boats from France. Ooh, interesting. That is kind of weird. Our laws are broken. I think he has a very valid point. Our laws are very much broken. I wish we had better ones. Mike is telling me that I'm wrong. He says Sweden, Italy, Germany, Norway, France all agree with me on the open border impact, among others. Poland and others prove why open borders don't work. No, my point was, your point, Mike, was that every country that tries in the EU failed. And my point was, no, there are some that didn't fail. And Poland was one of those. That was my point. I wasn't saying that Germany still is suffering. I think that's true. And they took in a whole lot of immigrants. Now, the issue with a place like Germany, though, is Germany's immigration rules are worse than America's. And because of that, people don't normally go to Germany for work. That's not a common thing compared to other nations, relatively. So Germany, with its problem, with its population problem, needs more workers. That's why they were open to take all those workers out of Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, when they had wars. They were open to take all those people out of North Africa when we destabilized Libya. To DL's point, when we destabilized Libya, I think they were open for those reasons. Yeah. Anyway, just kind of covering
Let
that
me
piece.
ask on that. When he says
Please.
it doesn't work in these countries, or the European countries have shown that it doesn't work. What do we mean by it doesn't work? Are we talking about the current cultural problems of like violence and stuff like that we're seeing right now? Is that what he's referring to?
He is referring to both cultural issues, and you look at the economies of those countries are not doing well.
Okay.
Both of those two things are both
Because
of
I was
those
going to say,
happen for all of those.
if we're talking about like all the crime and stuff like that, I think one thing, which I think is still a problem here, is that we are focusing on the wrong things. So we all have a laugh at, what is it, England, who will come and arrest you for something that you've tweeted. Okay.
Yes.
That's just ridiculous. They're spending time dealing with people that are tweeting, as opposed to, I don't know, somebody that's like trafficking humans or murdering or
no, but this is the point. Grace
assault.
brings it up. England is suffering from cultural, along with cost of living crisis. Both of them are failing. You're right. It's cultural and it's both sides. And the reason why the Brits can do this is it's a whole lot easier to arrest you for bullshit like that than it is to fix these two big problems. Cost of living is a huge problem to fix. The cultural issues are a huge problem to fix. You know what? I'll arrest you for tweets. Now I'm doing something.
Right, but that's the government problem. That's the government creating that problem, right? And we're seeing it a little bit over here too, not nearly to the degree, but we are seeing it. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, we need to get the government away from the culture, and we need to allow it to work as, their job. And I think Ben would actually agree with me on this. The government's job, if it's to do anything, is to resolve disputes. You can call it between the states, but more importantly, between people. So if Ben is my neighbor and we get into a pissing match over something, then, somebody's got to come in and say, Ben is right or Ben is wrong, DL's right, DL's wrong, what have you, right? Somebody has to come in and be that final authority. And so if that final authority is like, well, DL's Native American, so let's just defer to him instead of the white Ben, they are wrong. And we should be pushing back against our own government, because they're creating these cultural problems when they should come in and say, we don't care if you're Native American or if you're black or if you're a recent immigrant. If you did wrong, and you should be punished.
So I got three things that popped, three different comments that popped here. Robert says, your culture is your culture. Who cares about other people's culture? And let me go to the next piece that goes on here, which is Grace says, I have homeless people and illegals living in the woods outside my house. My husband has to walk with me right now. We live in an upscale neighborhood with high taxes. This is why Trump won. This was my point on how your culture can be affected. Things like this can affect your culture. Maybe Grace's culture was, I want to go out and I paid my money for this nice neighborhood home, and I want to walk around my neighborhood at night and enjoy a summer walk or whatever, right? Well, I can't now. This happened here in New York State, in New York City, Upper West Side with de Blasio. When all the migrants came in, he threw all the migrants in 5-star hotels. People in Upper West Side dropped $7, $8, $9 grand a month in rent, to rent in high-end places where they can take their kids out. They're all yuppies doing their cool thing. And they said, I'm not dropping $9 grand a month to walk over homeless people, or to walk over migrants. And that was happening there. And they were ready to leave. And de Blasio said, then leave. I don't care. De Blasio said that. So that is how these things can be affected. I'm not making a judgment on right or wrong.
Right.
But if you're saying how, this is to Robert's question, yes, you can do this. And the last piece is that Artemia Salina says, how do you adapt to an unstable culture? You fight back hard.
Yes.
So that means you either leave, you fight back hard, and at one point you may resort to violence. All right, I went down a road. Go ahead, Adil. You want to say something?
So I wasn't clear what unstable culture is, but I did want to touch upon the homeless thing. It seems to me, from what I can tell, that there isn't a single state in the union that manages to deal with the homeless issue correctly. I mean, we had California as one of the worst.
Texas.
Texas is worse?
No, Texas is one of the better ones.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, that was going to be.
No, Texas is one of the better ones.
But I know that California spent like some $24 billion, and their homelessness problem went up, right? Yep. And this is, for me, I look at it and I say, I think that a woman should be able to walk out on the street, go down to the mailbox, walk to the local store safely, right?
Yep.
Now, will it be a 100% safe? Never. It's never, ever, ever 100%.
Yep, we get it.
Far more than what we have now. And it's interesting. You have people like Thomas Sowell, who will talk about how when he grew up in Harlem as a little boy, at midnight, he could go out and go down to the local store, and there was virtually no violence. But I think a lot of this
I grew up in the South Bronx in the 70s. Same thing. No violence. Okay. Yes. I walked to school at 6 years old. I walked by myself.
Yes. And I think part of the problem is we have people that are kowtowing to the interest of others, and the American people are not doing. Why was de Blasio not literally thrown out on his ass, possibly physically, for that? Yes. Why is Governor Newsom?
DL's gone full Hoppian.
Yes, right? He has. He's ready to go.
I'm just saying,
out the helicopter.
People get mad. People get mad, and they keep electing the same people that are doing it. They don't like. We want to have all this cancel culture, and we're calling up people's jobs because they mocked Charlie Kirk, which is a horrible thing to do. Why aren't we putting that energy toward the people that are making our lives unlivable? Why are we not saying, all right, you know what? This guy, come hell or high water, he's getting removed from office. We're going to put all our resources behind this guy. We're going to primary him. We'll go drag him out of office. I don't really recommend violence, guys. I'm just kind of using hyperbole to make the point.
But isn't that the whole reason?
Doing anything.
Yeah, not to like interrupt your point, but like, isn't that like the same argument for what makes a dollar or what makes a border, is that we give them the power.
Yes.
Like we allow them to do it.
Yes. The reason we can't get to your utopia is because we keep giving them power. I don't object to getting there. I just don't think we will. And I think we need to put a better effort into reining in these people that keep passing laws that are ruining our neighborhoods. And it's primarily our own citizens that are doing it.
I agree.
Well, communities, not Washington, not the state, not the government, should be deciding who they're ready to welcome. So like cartels thrive on federal open borders. And I think like private borders actually make it so that somebody's actually responsible for who's coming in. So, I mean, like Ellis Island screened people because someone had to take responsibility. And if it's going to be the government, it's going to be the government. But I'm saying that responsibility should be explicit and voluntary. So it should be,
Let me grab this real fast. Libertarian says, thank you for $2. Great convo. Thanks, DL and Ben, for agreeing to this. Thank you guys for coming up. Yes, absolutely.
DL's awesome. He's a good man.
Right.
Fran is a new member, guys. I appreciate the memberships, guys. If you want to become a member, please become a member. You can jump over on YouTube, Sharpe Way, $49 per month. Click that join button. The more members I get, the more I can be doing this, and the less I can be working because I'm getting more money from members. So $49 per month. I know you're saying, Larry, that's like a cup of coffee. It is. I'm worth it. So give me a cup of coffee once a month. Give me a cup of coffee. A man can't get a cup of coffee once a month from you. I think you can. If you can't do it, no worries. There is a free and easy way of also helping me that has nothing to do with cash, and you don't at all have to put any money up whatsoever. And that is, you can support me over on the Advocates for Self-Government, right? If you look, there is a link in Facebook. There's a link on Rumble. There's a link on YouTube, and it says link to the Advocates. Take that link, that specific link, click it, head over to the Advocates. And when you're over there, click over on a link that says articles. Up here, you can see it says articles. Click on that link right there. And one of the articles is on what we're talking about. The American welfare system is a disaster. Zone of perverse incentives. That's what it is. It's about an 8-minute read, so it's a little bit longer. It's this month, very recent. Read this article. It's going to give you information that you like, that you need to hear about this, so you can talk about people, so you can tell Ben how right he is or how wrong he is. But you'll have some real stuff to talk about, not just, you're mad. You can have some real information by reading something just like this. If you like the article, here's how you help me out. If you like the article, share it. If you share the article, use that same link. It's free. Just share it out there. Let people see it. Have them watch. In fact, people who you think are more left-leaning, who think the welfare system is awesome, have them read it. Then they can be mad at you, and then they can respond, and they can put all kind of cool stuff, go back and forth, and maybe they'll read some more stuff. I want conversations. That's why I'm having these gentlemen here. That's why I have the Advocates here as a sponsor. So please use the link that's in the description. Click over there. Read this. If you like it, share it. Share it out there. Let people see it. That's how you can help me. And that's not even $49 per month. That's free. Do that and help me out, guys. I would appreciate it. All right. Here, let me, if I could, I want to tell you the reality. Here is the real answer. The real answer is a modification of what DL said. The real answer is an Ellis Island concept. And Ben, it's not at all utopian. In fact, it's already happening. It's already happening right now. The issue is you don't make a government. How do you do it? You simply find, as a beginning point, all you do is you find 2 points on the southern border right now. That's the initial piece. One in California, one in Texas. Government land, there's already government land, and you lease that land out. All you do, you lease it out to a private company that is currently a recruiting company. The massive recruiting companies that are all around the world already right now, moving millions of people back and forth across countries all day long with no murderers, no killers, none of that stuff's happening, safely back and forth all over. They will build it, not government, because if government builds it, it will take 45 years. They will build it, and they will have to pay leasing rights immediately. Why? Because if they have to pay leasing rights right away, they will build right away because they want to pay leasing rights. I'm incentivizing them to do so. Not just that. No company nor holding company may own both of these. There must be 2 separate companies / holding companies. Must be separate. We must create competition immediately. If we don't create competition, they will take advantage and exploit the people. But if we create competition, people go to the best one. I'm encouraging these businesses to treat them effectively. They will build massive hotel structures similar to what's happening right now when it comes to medical tourism. It's a similar piece already happening, a model we already have, places like Thailand, Vietnam, places like they already have that already. You do that right now. You build it up. If you want to come to our country, you go to the Ellis Island. You just go there. You go there voluntarily. They keep you there in a nice hotel with a hospital issue, and they check you out for whatever, 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. If you don't have some kind of communicable disease, if you don't have any other issue, you get what's called an orange card. The orange card allows you to follow the DACA rules that made sense. Those rules are you must check in every 2 years, and you may not be in any form of public assistance. If you take public assistance or don't check in, you don't go to Alcatraz, you get deported. That's it. We come get you, you get deported. There's no Alcatraz stuff. So, Mike, I don't put them in prison or Gitmo. None of that shit. They just get deported if they do it. If they check in and have nothing in public assistance, they may stay as long as they want. They may go back and forth as much as they want. They can come in, come out, do whatever they want. They have an orange card. It acts as a passport for work. You can go back and forth all you want. You want to bring your family, you can or not, does not matter. States have the option to opt out if they want to. If you don't want to be in a state, opt out. New Hampshire goes, I don't want it. You can opt out of the orange card program. Not just that. Larry, how will they pay for it? They're paying coyotes now. Stop paying the coyotes. Just pay these companies. They already have a business model that already exists. Recruiters get paid when they get people jobs. That's what they do. Or some recruiters, you pay them up front. So you do either one of those. You either accept it that you get paid by the company that's hiring them, the farm or the hotel or whatever, or they pay a flat fee, go, good luck, and you go get your job. Either one of those two. But I'm still not done. You don't have this across the border. Anyone can go. So if you're in Ohio right now and you fear the new king, King Vivek, you're scared of him, no worries. You can get in a train or a car or whatever, drive to the one in Texas or California, and get legal. And here's the best part. Because it's not government, no one is skipped in the line. The regular system still works as it always does. No one is skipped. No one's affected. The system is unaffected. But here's the best part. As this becomes very good, we'll make more of them. Why? Because the market, to your point, Ben, will want more of them. As that happens, people who are now stuck in the terrible government system will leave, and they will go over and go to these Ellis Islands to get legal. Larry, how can they do that? Very simple. We have a model of that already, which is most states, when you get your car inspected, you don't have to go to the government to get your car inspected. You go to a local gas station or a local garage, and they follow the rules of the state, and they inspect your car and give you a stamp. We follow that model with the Ellis Islands. They follow the federal regulations, whatever those goals are. They follow exactly the same thing. They go down the rules, get the thing. There's your orange card. Have a nice day. Which means now that system will actually be a better system than the federal system. So people in the federal system will stop going to it, and they'll just go to that system instead. And people will start to become legal to the point that they'll become, however they want to become legal, faster and faster and faster. And by the way, Ben, that's how we get to 1 million Ellis Islands. But we won't need 1 million. The market will decide how many. We might need 100. We might need 200. We might need 7. I don't know what number we need. I won't have to worry about it because the government's not running it. The government is simply authorizing private companies to do it. That is the actual answer, because here's the next piece. The guys who are bad guys, they won't go there. This is the point that Grace started. They won't go there. The bad guys won't go there. When they don't go there, our current system of Border Patrol agents will stop being babysitters, which is what they are now. They can stop being babysitters and just go after bad guys. The bad guys will be gotten a whole lot better because then our guys are no longer doing babysitters. No extra tax money, no extra enforcement, no extra cops, no extra anything. In fact, we get money from leasing land to these people. So the government actually makes money with this plan, and they pay taxes. People go back and forth. Families don't come unless they want them to come. So we're not putting them in schools anymore. So this idea about going to schools, half of these people won't bring their families. They'll keep their kids in Mexico or Guatemala, whatever. They'll just work here and go back. So even that happens, doesn't matter. But if they are going to the schools, doesn't matter. They're paying taxes because they're legal. Now, when it comes to the bad guys who are already here, those bad guys who are already here, one of the reasons why we can't get them is because the good guys here are afraid of them, because if they tell on them, they get deported. Well, now when good Pablo knows that he doesn't get deported because he's legal, he will tell on bad Pablo. And now the cops can go get bad Pablo. So the cops can now go get the bad guys because the good guys aren't afraid anymore. So the system that DL talked about is correct. The only flaw in your system, DL, is you made the government run it. That was your only flaw.
Fair enough.
Otherwise, that works.
I wish you said this like an hour ago, because I got a lot of things that I'd like to say to that, but like I'm going to try to be brief. But like I got to say, like, okay, I've used recruitment services to find labor, for instance. Okay, and I will tell you that like a lot of the people who come from those services have been bad labor that we've had to like get rid of almost immediately. Yep. Now those, we're talking about like a privatized system, that's more in line, I think, that what I'm saying is which is like, I want a private entity to take responsibility for who is coming in to sponsor somebody, 100%, than it is with an Ellis Island, because I feel like, like and honestly, if we're talking about like a decentralized system like that, those entities should be paying for the enforcement of deporting those people too. So if they need to go and find somebody, right, like they're going to have to pay to get them kicked out. And if, you know what I mean?
But that's my point. If we use the L's method where the government runs it, there's no responsibility. If it's a private company, the private company is responsible for that.
Right.
Yes.
And that's like basically what I'm advocating for. Like you said, like a million Ellis Islands, but at the same time, like these recruitment centers would operate as someone who's actually taking the responsibility, and there'd be competition. It wouldn't be a government monopoly. 100%. And like that does make it better. It's still not like a perfect decentralized situation.
You said it was utopian and impossible, and I gave you an actual thing that's actually happening. Everything I said is based on something happening right now. None of it's utopian.
Well, yeah, you're right. Like I said, I've used recruitment like stuff to find labor. And like I said, like I used to call the people we'd get from those labor finding places, I used to call them Power Rangers, because they used to like come in and they'd talk a lot of good stuff. And then they would like, be doing traffic control on a construction site and flipping their thing like a ninja around. So like, they're not always the best laborers. And sometimes you want to get rid of them right away. And in those cases, like, I think that those people would have to be able to screen those and have a good, whatever. But like private.
But my point being right now, Ben, is again, I'm saying it's no monopoly. It's separate companies. So if one of those, if one of those guys, one of those companies is giving you shit people, you'll use the other one. That's the point. That was my rule is very specific. I don't.
In a perfect situation, you're right. But I do think that there's going to be like companies who look for labor who actually exploit that system and will bring in people who are just like cheap labor.
It's happening now, dude. If you in New York State right now, upstate New York, if you're a farmer and you want labor, you go to a guy named Carlos and you say, Carlos, I need 5 dudes. 4, I don't care if they speak English. 1's got to speak English. Carlos goes, okay, I need X dollars. You give them X dollars. Carlos gives you 5 guys in the next week. That's how it works now. And if Carlos screws up, they get mad at Carlos. Carlos sometimes gives them bad labor. You hire bad people sometimes. That doesn't change. The difference is now someone's responsible. Yeah.
No, I think that's like probably, like I said, I think it's probably more in line with what I like to see than what, the Ellis Island approach, to be honest. But
I was just saying that this was the answer, that it was not utopian. That was my only pushback. It's not perfect, no doubt, but it's not utopian.
Well, nothing is, right? I mean, it's that quote from Richard Allen Epstein, I believe. See, I think I have it here. It says, the study of human institutions is always a search for the most tolerable imperfections. Yes. Right? Like that ultimately at the end of the day, all this debate is hopefully to get us to the most tolerable imperfection, because we're never going to create a perfect system of any kind.
True.
Well, the infrastructure is like,
Ben?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to be like say, I agree. Like a lot of infrastructure is in place to implement something closer, at least closer to what I would want. Not like what I would ideally want in a stateless society, but like we already like libertarians like to fight about roads and stuff too, right? Yep. So like, but roads in New Hampshire, I live on a private road. Like there's so many private roads all over the place that are, some are run by like more like HOAs or, the HOAs or communities, the co-ops will, pave them and asphalt them. They'd sell access, I guess, to like airlines too. Cause like, there's airlines as well, or toll roads. And I think that like, because the competition exists, there's like more of an incentive for them to be accessible to people. So, like and affordable and safe and all of that. So
I get it completely. Guys, I want you guys to know that when you see these guys, if you're listening, please follow Ben. Follow him on the emo ANCAP over on X and Twitter. See what he's doing. He does a lot of cool stuff. Check him out. Follow DL on X and Twitter also at Liberty Dad Pod. He does a podcast. You do a podcast early in the morning, don't you, DL? Like 7 or something, right?
7:30 a.m. Monday through Friday.
Yeah, he's insane. 7:30 a.m. I'm not in my. I'm just getting my coffee then, man. Anyway, but
that is my morning coffee. DL is my morning coffee. So
there we go. Yes. So yeah, I'm getting myself. But I've been on the show, so I'm complaining. But I've been on the show, so I guess I shouldn't complain so much. Guys, I'm going to ask you all something. If you would, please click the like button if you haven't already. I know I've asked you. It does matter. All right, guys, we want to wrap this up. Anything you want to say as a wrap up for this?
Yeah, I can just. So I think this was a great conversation. I know some people were like, I saw some of the comments and people were like, hey, I was expecting some more fireworks. As it turns out, Ben and I are actually friends. So, so we're trying not to ruin that relationship. And if you guys know anything about the Libertarian Party, you know that when it comes to having friends within the Libertarian community, you can't lose too many of them because you don't have very many of them in the first place. So, and to be honest with you, we've had a lot of conversations where we disagree. And I think both of us are of the caliber where we actually want to have a good conversation. We don't really necessarily want to be screaming and yelling at each other, blah, blah, because it isn't productive. And it doesn't, like, maybe it provides a little bit more entertainment. And if we ever go on Pierce Morgan, maybe we can, we can be uncensored and get crazy and just yell at each other and then laugh afterward. But thank you, Larry, for having us both on. Thank you for all the tough questions. Thank everybody in the audience for all of your questions. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Yes. Look, I just gave pushback on it. I was playing devil's advocate the entire time. I was just doing pushback because I don't want blood sport. I don't do blood sport. It's not what I do here. If you look at what it says, it says the way to mutual respect. That's what it says here for the show, right? I'm not here to do blood sport. You can get blood sport anywhere.
Right.
Here, you don't get blood sport. Here, you get conversation. Here, you get back and forth. Here, you get pushback. So you actually learn something, care about someone, can actually talk here. You get people left and right on this show. You don't just get a bunch of lefties or righties yelling at each other. It's not how that works. Doesn't do that at all. We have a very good chat, and I love my chat. So thank you for that, DL. I appreciate it. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I hopefully people weren't expecting Jerry Springer. I really like DL. I really like Larry, obviously, representing here. But I do think this conversation is important. I will say that there are like two things in the world that like I absolutely hate debating. It's borders and abortion, because I just think there's like a ton of like nuance, and I'm a pro-life person. I just think that there's some nuance there. I'm a Christian. I will unapologetically be pro-life until I die. But I just, these are conversations I don't like to have because I don't think anyone has a perfect answer to it. And I think that a lot of this stuff is, never going to happen. The government's growing more by the day. The border is certainly not getting more, it might, right now they're saying it's getting more secure, but there's still people crossing the border every single day.
Well, you never know. One person on this panel might become governor of New York one day and make some changes. Possible. Just saying.
Or the governor of Nashua, New Hampshire. Possibly.
You mean mayor?
No. When it's broken down into its own state, you're going to be the governor.
Oh, then I thought we're going for king. I thought we're going for king. I want to be emperor. I want that title. I want emperor. That's my title. Emperor of Nashua. I want that title.
I think that like this was a very valuable conversation either way. And like I said, abolish ICE as a federal agency, make it privatized, decentralize everything. That's my answer to pretty much
Liberty Lady
everything.
says, love the convo tonight. So we got some positive stuff. Fran says, I prefer the productive talk. Ooh, I like that. So we did get a couple positive things back and forth. We got to love you, Larry. There we go. We got some good ones. So I think we're doing well, guys. I appreciate it. Guys, I want to say to everyone here, you know the rules here, if you don't mind. There are a bunch of new rules. So please, with YouTube, when you're done, comment after the live is over. Come back and comment after live and just tell me, very simple question. What do you think is an answer for immigration? I don't care what you say. Please comment. I will try to respond. I'll bug these guys to come and respond if they will too. Respond and make this have action so this will move out. Please come back afterwards and respond. And if you see this is not live, you're going to see the videos pop up. If those videos pop up and you're watching when it's not live, you're watching it like Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, something, watch one of those videos right away. Mr. Rhythm, Algo Rhythm loves it. I'll be back on tomorrow. I will see you all very soon.